Welcome to the Cast Blast Grill Chill podcast with Jeremy and Trevor, the podcast that's all about hunting, fishing, grilling, and chilling out and having a good time in the outdoors. Alrighty, Trevor, and we're good. Let's go ahead and get this thing rolling since we're trying to make it a quick one.
All right. Well, first off, my beard is probably hitting my microphone. I can feel it in there. So you may get a little bit of extra noise in this one.
Uh-oh. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the start of No Shave November, man.
Yeah, I've been growing mine out for a minute because of the Astros playoff game. It's kind of what's caused this podcast to be a little bit delayed since we've been busy watching postseason baseball.
World Series and
Game
everything
7,
else,
you
man.
know.
Yeah, 7-game World Series. You know, they don't make enough money unless they go to 7 games.
That's for darn sure.
Yeah. But, yeah, man, so we got out last weekend out to some more public land to do some archery doe hunt. I think that was going to be at least my last opportunity for the doe days out on that public land out there. I don't know if you're planning on getting out here before general season starts up, which is when they switch to buck only out there at this certain public land.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to make it. I just don't have the time. This coming Saturday opens the South Zone for big duck. It's going to be too warm, in my opinion, to be chasing bucks this weekend, so I'm going to go chase ducks instead.
There you go. Yeah, man, I think we're holding a lot of ducks. Actually, sitting up in that stand out there at that property that last night, saw about 50 to 70 ducks making their way to big water, kind of on the edge of where I was, and I was on the flyway apparently, so.
Oh, yeah, I had a ton of them fly over me, especially in the morning. I didn't have as many fly over me in the evening, but I was also preoccupied seeing as how I had just got done seeing a bunch of deer and whatnot, so I wasn't paying as close of attention as I typically am.
Yeah, so we were out there Friday evening and all of Saturday. I ended up taking off a half-day Friday. Had to burn half a day of my use it or lose it time, so I had taken it off, 2-3 weeks in advance, and just so happened it was going to coincide with an awesome cold front that we had come in, dropping temperatures from highs in the upper 70s down to into the low 30s. So that was great, but the only downside of Friday night, what I learned as soon as what we expected, but as soon as we got out there, man, you're getting almost blown out of the tree. We had gusts up to almost 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, it was definitely
due north.
windy.
Yeah, north wind, a gust up to 30. And, I mean, it was way too windy. Like, I felt safe and everything in the tree stand, but my big tree that I was on was moving a little bit. I had a smaller one knocking into it, and just way too windy for anything to really be moving unless it got pushed out of something else. I just don't think that they feel comfortable moving in that kind of heavy wind with, it did have direction, but it was just really heavy wind that I don't think they feel safe in, scent wise.
Yeah, definitely on a heavy wind day like that, like most animals tend to bed down. Like they may feed right there, right around their bed, but I have a feeling that like those deer didn't get up and move much Friday. I didn't see near the activity on Friday that I expected to see, because a lot of times when that cold front blows in, even if it's windy, those deer will get up and move around, to go feed in anticipation of the cold. But
yeah, that is the case sometimes, but we may have missed it the morning. We may have just been, a couple hours too late getting out there in the evening. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes it does fall that way, that they'll come out in anticipation or kind of get that feeling or the pressure change, and they want to go, okay, this is going to happen. I know what this feeling is. Let me go eat. Bed down real nice.
Yeah, because actually that Friday afternoon around lunch, a buddy of mine called me, and he'd been hunting out in that same general area on some private land his family owns, and he was in a real spindly little oak tree, and it was swaying all over the place, and he's like, I just got to get down. He goes, I don't feel safe. So he wound up going over to another feeder that they have, and he put a stalk on a hog, and he doesn't know what happened. He wound up getting blown or missing the shot. I can't remember what he told me, but whatever it was, he didn't wind up harvesting that pig. But as he was coming back, the feeder that he had been sitting on, he had a real nice buck there on it, and he got to within either 30 or 40 yards, but he said he didn't feel really comfortable with the wind and that distance taking a shot with his bow. But
Yeah.
uh, but so we may have just missed the movement. May have just moved that morning, ate, and then just went back to bed and never got up. And they may have got up because as we were getting out of the stands and sitting there by the trucks having a conversation, the wind did kind of die down. So they may have got up after dark and fed a little bit and then went back to bed because
Yeah, who knows?
I know Saturday morning, we both got there around 5.
Saturday morning, yeah. Yeah, it was just right about 5 o'clock, just a touch before.
Yeah, and it was 32 degrees.
It was 32 degrees pulling up, and then I know the temp was supposed to drop before, leading up to 7 a.m. It was supposed to drop another degree or two right before sunrise.
Yeah.
So it may have got down to 30, 31 degrees, out there where we were at. But, driving in, it was 35 basically the whole way. The whole way there, my truck was reading out 35 degrees. Yeah, but once I got out in the sticks,
got down that little depression right there, that little piece of public's kind of a low piece of ground, and it definitely holds that cold in there.
Yeah, it definitely holds that cold air. Yeah, so Saturday morning, getting there early. We had set the stands and left them the night before, so we were able to get in there pretty quiet that morning. I decided not to use any, rope drags, scent drags, or any kind of
no estrus,
doe and estrus,
dominant buck.
Yeah, nothing like that. No doe bleats, no rattling horns, nothing like that. Because it's the first good cold front. I can still harvest a doe, so I just didn't want any extra noise or scent in the air to cut my chances in half, or more than in half by, doing something that a doe didn't like and was going to blow at or, not feel right about and come into the area. If I'm sitting there with a doe bleat and she's like, I don't like that, or rattling horns, or just getting a scent of, something that she just doesn't like out of the estrus, who knows?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like rattling horns might have been a good idea because I definitely did. I think Friday night, kind of back into the thick stuff, I did hear a little bit of sparring, like not a full-on fight. And I know for a fact Saturday morning, I did hear, some bucks mix it up.
Saturday evening, I 100% did. It was, about 10, 20 minutes before last light, but I 100% did. And that made me feel more confident of being able to come back and, harvest a buck here later on in the season out there.
Yeah, you did actually, Saturday morning, you did see, 2 bucks?
I saw one buck, and he was with a doe. He was kind of just letting her feed, and he was just kind of sticking close by. He was looking like he was kind of checking her, and just he wouldn't really.
See.
Yeah, it's just that wait and see. She wasn't quite ready yet, and so I think he was just kind of hanging around. He found one he liked and was just kind of hanging around and waiting for the opportunity. But yeah, he was sticking close. But for my stand, that shot, I think, was 130 or 160. What did I tell you? Do you remember?
I think it was like 130, 140, something like that.
Yeah, and so they had both moved, and they hung out there, and the doe fed for quite some time, maybe a good 10 minutes or so, in that little hole of visibility I had out of the timber into this field, and so they ended up moving off. And I texted you, oh man, they moved off, and then slowly she came back, and I guess he hung out wherever they went to after they walked off, but she came right back up the same trail, took her same route. I'd seen deer in that general vicinity in past hunts.
On opening weekend, right? You saw them out there too.
Opening weekend, and then one of the weekday hunts that I went out there, I got blown off walking in because I was a little late. It was about 5:30 walking into my stand. 2 does blew at me from the other side of the pond there that I'm hunting. And so at that point, I decided I needed to move my stand. I was just out of reach of where I needed to be.
Yeah. Well, let's go back a second because I wound up sticking my stand because I got there Friday after work and hung my stand and managed to get a couple hours sit in. Didn't see anything, blew around in the wind, and realized after the fact that there's two white oak trees there that I've hunted out of before. This was the wrong white oak tree that I hung my stand
Mm.
in. But I was there. I was anxious. I didn't want to mess with it and move it. I didn't have a very productive morning. I heard some things move around, but I never saw anything move around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we hunted till about 11, I guess.
It was about 11.
And
Yeah,
then
it's somewhere in there.
and the wind was still blowing pretty good. Um,
Yeah, it had been calm that morning and then kind of seemed to pick up around midday.
yeah, right about the time that the sun got up and it started warming up.
Yeah,
Because it wasn't. I'm not gonna say it was brutally cold, but I definitely probably should have layered a little better than I did. But I was
I think I
thinking,
was just about perfect on my layering, man. If I had taken off anything or not had the heavier safety vest, then I think I would have been pretty cool, pretty
yeah,
cold. But
I think I would have liked to have had a vest on underneath my hoodie.
mhm,
I think that would have been just enough, or a vest over my hoodie, just enough to
yeah,
keep my
puffy
core.
vest over
Yeah,
possibly. Yeah,
yeah, I'd like to have my little puffy on, just because even though it wasn't that cold, sitting that still for that long before
yeah,
the sun comes up, it can get brutally cold, especially with me hunting by that creek. That water cools down that air just that little bit
yeah.
more. But the worst thing about that morning was getting there so early and that place being so quiet for a change. Like I think we only had two guys come in that morning.
Yeah, there were
Um,
two other vehicles at the gate when we walked
uh,
out.
but man, my mind played a ton of tricks on me that morning, thinking I
Hmm.
was hearing deer and seeing headlights off in the woods because that moon was so bright. It
Yeah,
was just, it just, too much time and your brain tries to make sense of what it sees out there in the woods, and it didn't like three-quarters of what I was seeing. I was just like, man, that looks like a guy coming in. Oh man,
yeah.
he's walking right up the deer trail, right? Oh man,
Uh,
and then 20 minutes later, that's still that bright.
it's
And
yeah,
I was like, well, I guess there's just a big hole right there that the moon's shining through real good, but it just looks like that how the headlamp looks, you know,
yeah.
300 or 400 yards off in the woods, whenever a guy's setting up, it just looked that way. And then, but I never saw those guys. So come lunch, we both piled out of there and decided to, we both decided we wanted something hot to eat, so we went and hit up the Whataburger.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, people, that whole spiel he just gave you, he was also listening to a UFO podcast along with it. And walking in that morning when we were on the main trail, we did see some kind of drone or something weird up in the sky, and he was talking about UFOs then too.
Yeah, I may have
And
listened
so I don't know,
to a couple of UFO podcasts back to back. It was right before Halloween, so a lot of the
yeah,
podcasts I've been listening to were the ones that kind of mess with you a little bit, and
I
then
think he
yeah,
was freaking himself out, and I think you kind of got. You kind of got stuck in your own head there for a minute, and the moonlight started freaking you out, and
maybe a little bit. Maybe I thought I was going to get abducted by aliens.
yeah, you think the beam of moonlight coming down is gonna tractor beam about to lift you up and carry you into outer space.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, yeah, man. But I hit up the Whataburger like you said. Got me a delicious patty melt. Shout out Whataburger. You want to
Yeah,
sponsor the podcast? Just
give
hit
us
us
free
up.
Whataburger.
Yeah,
We don't
whatever,
need
man.
money. We just need free Whataburger.
My girlfriend wants one of those Whataburger charms, so if y'all want to send one of those James Avery things this way too, that'd save me some money. But
But
yeah, it came back. What we end up heading back to the stand about 1 o'clock or a touch
yeah,
after.
yeah, we started getting all of our gear and scent killing again about 12:45, and we were walking in just a little bit before 1, and
1 o'clock, yeah.
because we were both set up, and because I texted you, hey, I'm in the tree, and you responded to me, I'm already in the tree too,
Yeah.
by 1:30.
So what had happened at that point? I got back up in my stand, clipped in on my safety vest, sat there and playing that mental game with myself. Do I move? Do I stay? Do I move? Do I stay? And
Well,
that
and
went on for
and
about,
consider the fact that's our whole conversation we had at lunch was like, I'm going to move my stand, but I'm not going to move
yeah.
it today. I'm going to move it next hunt.
Yeah, yeah. And then it was like, yeah, it's just the whole thing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And then I sat there for another 10 minutes and I'm like, damn it, do I move it or do I stay? It's like, I hate that feeling of if you move it and then they're right back in where you were the first time. And then you're like, well, crap. So I ended up saying, all right, I'm getting down right now, unclipped, walk down, went down the steps, pulled my stand on the way down and all that, and got all my stuff down, and went over to the original tree that I had kind of picked out. It was going to be a little too big and a little bit too far off of where exactly I wanted to be. So I did find a smaller elm that's on the edge of the field, like exactly on the edge of the field, right in front of that big tree that I couldn't get on. Found a nice, creek crossing where they were at. I just liked the spot. So I only had to take down 2 branches and threw the stand up in there. And that little elm tree, I really only have to put 1 stick to get up, the 1 climbing stick to get up into my stand, but just out of safety, I put 2 in there. I have no need for a 3rd. And I really liked that location. I really liked where I moved. So, then
And
go ahead.
then you got all set up and everything because you texted me. I moved my stand, and I texted you. I was like, "Where'd you move it to?" And you're like, "Well, I moved it down into the field." And you sent me a picture of where you were hunting, and I was like, "Okay, cool. I kind of know where you're at." That way, in the event that something had gone down, I'd be able to
get to where I'm at. Yeah, exactly. I like to keep the communication going at least on where I moved to.
And that was about the time I responded to you. Well, we got a guy walking in.
Yeah,
Or,
and so
or 2 guys walking in, because I think that was the 2 guys that walked in there, and that wasn't the other guy who I'll bring up here in a little bit. But I think those are 2 guys that just cruised on by, didn't really mess anything up, and just kept on going.
Yeah, I was able to move the stand and get set up in the tree and everything up there it was like 35 minutes. I mean, I love this hang on stand. It was great. Granted, it wasn't a far haul to where I was needing to go. I moved 110 yards, east of where I was originally. So the wind was still to my advantage. I still had good wind for it. I was still hunting the same wind. And about 30 minutes after I texted you, I moved my stand, texted you back, oh, it's all doe. And a doe crossed that field in just about the same spot that they had been, that morning.
And what was your shot distance to about the area that you were at there? What you said that was like 50 yards, you said, or 40 yards, 40, 50, something like that?
At exactly where they were standing, it was 65 to exactly where I was looking at them from this morning. But the trail that runs behind it's like this little depression that holds water. It's not even, I wouldn't even call it a pond. And so there's a little trail that runs behind it with some green grass. And that my closest shot was 45. Furthest shot was like out to 100 because it's kind of a long depression.
Yeah.
And so that first doe at about 3 o'clock had moved around the backside, and she kept out just about 100. But I was like, okay, I feel good about this spot. I like it. I like where it's at, and I think I'm where I need to be.
Okay. So you seen that? So then you saw that first doe, and then what? I guess that's probably what, about one.
It was about 3. No, it was about 3 o'clock.
Yeah, about 3 o'clock. Okay. And then that was about the time that the wind kind of shifted out of the northwest and started kind of blowing again. Was about 3 o'clock, because I remember, because my tree started doing that back and forth kind of slow rock, and I was like, man, I wish I was in a bigger tree.
Yeah. Yeah, I had moved to a smaller tree, and I was definitely getting some more leans than I was in the big oak that I was originally in. But yeah, so up until you texted me after that doe, up until you texted me that there was that guy walking in, I hadn't seen anything else. That's about the time that I figured my day was done, because this guy comes walking in. I mean, like, he had pretty good, like, field etiquette. He wasn't being loud and stuff. Like, the only reason I saw him was because he started to come in on my trail. Yeah. Well, let's set the stage here just real quick for the listener. So there's a main trail that goes woods on either side. You're on one side of the trail. I'm on the other side of the trail. I'm a couple 100 yards off of that trail, and you're
30, 40
just
yards.
You're just slightly
right
off
the
of
trail.
the main trail. So you're able to see, and we're both on, like, longitudinally I guess I can't speak.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're basically you're 300 yards off the right side of the trail walking in, and I'm basically 15 to 30 yards off the left side of the trail walking in, off the
yeah.
main trail.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
And then, so those two other guys had already, you know, walked by. They didn't mess anything up. That main trail, it's a double track. It's well traveled. People go up and down it all the time to hunt ducks, hunt dove, work their dogs, you know, any number of different reasons. People are always on that trail. So human scent and guys walking up and down that trail don't really feel affects the pigs or the deer or really anything out there. I think they're pretty used to it. But so this guy comes walking in. I guess it was because I just texted you that it was about to get prime time. So I guess it was right
It's
about 5 o'clock. It was
right,
it was
right about five or touch after.
yeah, it was just before 5 o'clock, I think. And I hear a big snap, and I get all excited. I'm like, "Oh, here it comes!" And I turn around and I look, and it's a guy. I see orange and orange, and he can't see me because I have my back to this pretty good sized oak tree. It's big, but it's not big enough with the wind. And so I kind of stick my head around at him, and he sees me, and he kind of perks up and he backs out, and he goes about 15, 20 yards down past me to where not the trail you go in on, but where there's another really heavy worn game trail, and he starts
Hmm.
walking down it. And I was like, I sent you a text. I was like, hey, be on the lookout. You may have a guy, popping out, over here by this spot. So he may bump deer your way, but the other thing is I didn't want you to get surprised and see a guy all of a sudden and you know just be like, oh. But
Yeah.
so he goes in. You text me, great, and so we're both sitting there, and I never get a text from you like, oh man, this idiot just walked right through my best hunting area. And I'm like, well, where did he go? I mean, there's really no other place other than the place you were hunting before.
If he would have walked far enough in that direction, he would have hit the field. I would have definitely seen him if he
Yeah.
walked far enough in.
Yeah, so the only other spot I figured he could have been was where you were originally hunting, but that trail really doesn't go to that spot. I mean, you can get there,
Yeah.
but you're going to wind up walking through
It's just,
briars.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's
this dude had a stand on his back and everything else. I'm like, that doesn't seem like. And then I guess about 15 minutes after that, he comes poking out about 75 yards down the trail. I see him cross the trail and cross back into the side I'm hunting on. And now he's crossing upwind to me where I was expecting the deer to cross and come in on me. And I'm like, well, great. And like, I see him, he stops, he looks confused for a couple of minutes, kind of looks around. I wave at him, I'm like, hi. And he once again perks up and sees me. I'm like, how far did you think you went, dude? You went maybe 75 yards tops.
yeah, yeah. So he
And
got all
he,
confused walking into that other side and
yeah,
figured out there wasn't really a good place to go over there.
exactly. And so he crosses back down, and I see him, walk into this other bottom that which is where I had wanted to move my stand to. But me and that climber, I was like, there's no way I can move it and be quiet enough. I was like, I'm just gonna set this out.
Yeah,
And then,
and you
and
you
then,
were you were in the best place for that wind anyways. And by
yeah,
him going upwind to you, he was cutting off all your deer. I
he
mean,
yeah, I was basically like, I'm done. I'm like, I'm not gonna see anything. I'm just done. There's my day's done. And you were like, well, go over here, go over there. What about that old stand that I told you where it was at? Can you go hunt that one? I was like, it's like, yeah. I was like, but we're right here at the best time of day. I was like, I still have this other side of wind that's good for me. This guy can't get all the way over there to that side. The creek won't allow it. I was like, this is, I'm just gonna sit it out. I'll be fine. And then another 20 minutes comes by, and now he's 30 yards, 40 yards closer to me. He's only 60 yards away from me, and here he comes traipsing back out, looking lost again. And he actually sits down, you know, in this yopon, overlooking this little oak flat that has some pecans and a persimmon tree and all this other stuff in there. I'm like, really, dude? And he finally winds up looking back my direction and, is like, oh. And he kind of sits there for a little while. I'm like, come on, dude. Really? I was like, it's public. What are you going to do? Now I'm texting. I'm like, well, I'm definitely done. I'm boned. This guy's set up 60 yards in front of me. I'm toast. So I go, basically just kind of settle in. I grab a Cliff Bar that you'd given me that morning and a big glass of my 32-ounce Nalgene and start sucking down water. I'm like, I'm just done for the day, whatever. I'm just basically relaxing now. Start eating trail mix and just like, well, he finally stands up and he just walks out. I'm like, okay. I guess he just gave up. So now I'm thinking that, well, maybe I got a chance. Maybe he didn't mess it up totally. I was like, at least I still have this other side that he still hasn't messed up with the wind. And that's the same time as the last time I was out there, the pigs came from, and I hear a splash. It's about another 10, 15 minutes after he's left. So now it's 6 o'clock or so, and I'm like, all right. And my phone's almost dead. I think I texted you. I was like, hey, he just walked out. I think we're good. And about that time, my phone died. And then I hear a splash, and I get those jitters and the electricity run up my spine, and I'm wide awake again, and I'm good, and nothing ever comes. I'm like, but I can hear something back there in the thick stuff kind of walking around and moving. I'm like, any minute now, it's going to happen. And then I see 2 deer cross about 120 yards north of me. I was like, oh, man, that's right. Where I was going to move my stand to. I can't believe it. I should have moved my stand, just kicking myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe they'll come this way. And I never hear them come back towards me. And I'm like, it's just no good. And I'm like, oh, well. And then I see something cross again. This is 10 minutes later or so. And I see something move again. And then I see something move again. And I'm like, what is that? And it's coming, like whatever it is, I can hear it moving through the dead leaves and the broken sticks and stuff. And I'm like, it's getting closer. I'm like, it's got to be pigs. And then I see something else cross. And I'm like, that was a deer. I saw the white tail. I was like, it's definitely a deer. And like, I hear getting closer. And then I see this thing that I don't know what it is. It's gray. It's tiny. It looks like an armadillo or a raccoon. And now I'm defeated. And I'm like, man. And it's just kind of like hopping. Like you know how armadillos move? They kind of do that jump move. And I'm like, man, it's an armadillo. And I kind of slouch back. And then a doe walks out. And I noticed that this is a doe with 3 fawns. And that one little gray one I saw was just the run of the litter. He was half the size of the other 2.
Just that high grass throwing you off too.
No, there was no high grass. He was down in all the dead leaves and stuff. But he was just gray, but he had his head down feeding, and he was just so small. I mean, he probably only came up maybe to my knee at the head. I mean, he was just a little bitty tiny. He didn't have spots on him or anything, but he was just a little bitty old, 8-month-old deer that I guess since she had triplets, he was just the run of the litter. And so now I'm jazzed up. I'm like, I got a shot. I range it. It's like 47 yards. I'm like, with the crossbow, that's easy. I dialed my crossbow in, at 30, 40, and 50 the night before. This is good. I'm great. Just got to wait for my shot because I've got a whole lot of brush and stuff coming this way because this wasn't the direction I was expecting to be taking my shot from. And I'm like, okay. Then they keep feeding. And finally, she gets to where I have this one little shooting lane. And I was like, that's it. I'm take my shot. Thwunk. I take my shot. They all scatter. She only goes 40 yards, and this is why I think I'm done hunting with the crossbow. I'm going to go back to the bow. This makes the second time that if I would have had a regular bow, I could have knocked an arrow and shot. She's sitting broadside at me, front leg forward. I mean, just the most perfect shot you could ask for at 40 yards, which I know I can make with my bow. I can put it within the size of my fist at 40 yards consistently every time. And I'm just like, oh, I could have her. I was like, maybe I hit her because she's sitting there and she's blowing louder and harder than I ever heard a deer blow before. And she goes on and on and on and on. And finally, as I'm sitting there, like, she'll look away and I'm grabbing my cock and rope and putting it back on my crossbow, waiting for her to go again. And I've got my
doing
legs.
Something else, yeah.
Just doing it in steps.
Yeah, and
and
intervals while she's not looking
as she
exactly in your direction,
yeah,
and
yeah, because she had no clue what happened. She just knew
yeah,
something hit
something
there
messed
by
with
her.
her fawns. Yeah,
Well, yeah, it wound up. That bolt wound up driving itself about 3/4 of the way through a good sized oak tree.
yeah.
I mean, I shot right over her back. The only thing I can figure the reason why I missed is because I didn't take the fact that I was up in a tree into consideration, the angle, and because it was a 40-yard shot, it's like 42 yards, and I put it dead on at 40. But I always, in that excitement, forget to compensate just that little bit, for the gravity assist of being down at an angle,
Hmm.
because when you're up 20 feet in a tree and you're taking that down angle, because your rangefinder compensates for you, with the angle. It'll tell you, that's a 40-yard shot, but you need to aim for 32 or whatever.
No, it just tells you the angle, so it
Oh,
lets
okay.
you.
Oh, yours doesn't
So
have the
it
compensation.
tells you how many yards and then what angle it is.
Okay, I didn't.
So
I thought yours had the compensation where it like will
no, it
say.
doesn't. It doesn't do the math for you.
Okay, but yeah, so I wound up finding out like I wound up sitting there for a good long time and going there and checking my bolt, and there was no nothing on it, and listened to that doe be mad as all get out.
Hmm.
But that was the I didn't get down till about I had about 10 minutes of shooting light left because I wanted to make sure that if I had indeed hit her, that I had enough time to
At least
at least
start the blood trail.
yeah, at least start on a blood trail, or look at my bolt and say, okay, well, I'm gonna have to definitely track this deer at night. I'm gonna go sit back at the truck and drink some water and just chill out for an hour and wait her out and then go back.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, man, that's archery. I mean, it's frustrating. You get so close, and then it's something happens. There's so many variables, and it's like that's what draws me to it and gets me excited, though. And I'm thankful every time for a clean miss.
Yeah,
Absolutely, we've reiterated that, and we probably look like the worst shots in the world now because I think this is probably the third podcast in a row where either there's been a shot taken or an animal hit, and I would much rather have a shot taken and a clean miss any day than not being able to recover the animal.
yeah,
But yeah, I ended up seeing about right at 6 o'clock. Um, there was a couple of does that moved out of one corner of this field, and they started moving down direction, then disappeared into some stuff that I couldn't see through, and they ended up coming back across and out real wide around this field, just kind of feeding through, kind of playing around with each other. They were just, when does are out all together and kind of like that family group, and they're all just kind of jumping and messing with each other a little bit and feel
yeah,
safe. So they were all kind of doing that and just slowly worked their way across this field, just out of range. Um, from about 300 yards into about, I think it was just a touch over 100 yards from me. Um, Saw another doe that was trying to come out onto a trail to my right and ended up getting spooked. I think she saw the white of my face because from that angle, I don't have a branch covering too well. And I think I just should have been wearing my
your face
my
mask.
camo net. Yeah, my face mask. Um, then ended up seeing 9 deer that night. Just sorts and sizes and different directions, and just no shot opportunities. But I think I love my stand location. I feel really good about it, and I'm gonna get a stand back up in that tree as soon as I can get back out there.
Yeah,
Um, I
I'm with you. I think after these last couple of hunts, I think we've kind of not figured this property out, but I think we've kind of figured out where we need to be.
yeah. Well, and it's every time you go out, you learn something more about the property. So,
Exactly.
but on that note, let's let's look forward to our hunt coming up here in what 2.5 weeks. We're going to be going
Yeah.
out to the national forest doing us a rut hunt.
Yep, we got our rut hunt coming up the 11th of November, and then we've got,
17th
or the 17th. That's right. I got the
17th of
wedding the
November.
11th, and then we got a 3-day weekend planned for out there, and then we'll be doing our rut hunt after that, and then we got Thanksgiving. I'm gonna go hunt some family property for Thanksgiving up in Arkansas, so I'm gonna go do a little out of state hunt, maybe go chase some ducks while I'm up there.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing some waterfowl that week of Thanksgiving, and I got roped into cooking Thanksgiving dinner yesterday, so I'll be doing Thanksgiving dinner this year, and I might have a couple of ducks on the smoker.
There you go.
You know, but
Yeah,
but yeah,
definitely.
things,
So
stay tuned, and
yeah, stay tuned. We should probably do a podcast after our rut hunt. So that'll be the third week in November. We may even record one while we're out there in the national forest. We'll see how that goes. But until then, get outside, go enjoy this good weather that we got, and tight lines to all you guys getting out there doing fishing on the coast and everything. And y'all have a good one. We'll see y'all next time.
later.